שיביתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד, כי ממני בוא למות. לכן צמח ליבי ויגל כבודי, אף בשרי ישכון לבטח. כי לא תעזוב נפשי לשאול, לא תיתן חסידך לראות שחת. תודיעני אורח חיים, שבע שמחות את פניך, נעימות במנחה נצח.
I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice, my being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful one see destruction. You show me the path of life, your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift, now and forever. Amen. The words that Cantor Gutman chanted and I just read, the words of Shaviti, they come from the Psalms. For generations, Jews have turned to the Psalms, the writings of King David, to find in what are essentially his journal entries, words of comfort and consolation in our own time. It's incredible to think that something written 2,000 years ago could still be relevant today, but that is the nature of death and of loss, of love and of life. We're not the first to walk in the valley of the shadow, and so we draw comfort and strength from those that walk the path before us, and yet each person's journey is unique to them. Your presence here is to be and is a comfort to this family and this circle of friends. You are each walking along that path and along that journey. And maybe the words of tradition will be of comfort, but I know for sure that the words that you share with each other, the stories that you tell about Lucy, as I've said before, the lessons that you draw from her life and incorporate into your own, they will comfort you and they will allow her neshama, her soul, to live on beyond this moment and beyond this life. That is our shlichut, it's our sacred obligation to her, our sacred purpose, and it's the gift that she has given us because she has left a soul print on everyone that she met. She was a connector. How many of you called her on the phone and she picked up, or how many of you were on the phone with her and somebody else called and she transferred over from your call to their call because she could not turn away a phone call, right? Call waiting was no waiting for Lucy. That's the remarkable woman that she was and continues to be as long as we remember her for blessing. I want to share a few other words from the Psalms, words that I hope are of comfort, and then we'll hear from the family as well. Adonai mi yagur b'ochalecha mi yishkan b'har kodshecha. God, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain. Here, King David is asking a question that we all ask, who at the end of their life, no matter its length, is measured for reward and merit? Who's deserving of living on in heaven? And then David gives an answer in his psalm, in this Psalm 15, of what the qualities of such a person are. And listen to those qualities because they are the qualities of Lucy. Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may do not retract it, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Wasn't that the character of her soul? The quality of her being? She had an incredible moral compass. She had an awareness and a sense of the needs of others and was always, always sensitive to them. What a gift and what a blessing. In another psalm, one that's more familiar, I think, Psalm 23. Cantor Gutman's going to chant the words in Hebrew, and then we'll read together in the English.
מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בינות דשא ירבצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא מוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי, דשנת ושמן ראשי. כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
If you have the program that was handed out, let's read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me to lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul. God leads me in the paths of righteousness for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you art with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. V'kol zman v'et v'kol chefetz tachat hashamayim, to everything there is a purpose, a time, a season, for every experience under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. I read that line and I think of your mom's environmentalism, and as her grandchildren have shared, her love of growing tomatoes and picking blackberries and blueberries. She was an environmentalist before the word was almost invented. A time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to grieve and a time to dance. A time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to discard. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silent and a time to speak. And so there is a void, an absence, a silence for sure in our lives now without Lucy's voice. And so we fill that void with memory. There are peoples whose lives ripple outward, quietly, steadily, enduringly. And Lucy was one of those people, a life that rippled outward. Not loud and not boastful, but woven into the lives of everyone she touched. Her strength wasn't always visible, but it was undeniable. Lucy's story begins in Vienna in 1938 on the cusp of a catastrophe. She was born into a world already unraveling, and by the time she was just a few months old, the Nazis had marched into Austria and everything changed. Her family fled, first to France and then to Palestine and then across oceans, on the SS Robert E. Lee, just off the coast of Trinidad. That ship was torpedoed, and she was on it. Lucy was still a toddler, and miraculously she survived. They arrived in New Orleans in their underwear, she said, with nothing but their lives and a pair of life jackets. What a life she made from what humble beginnings. From the very beginning, Lucy's life was a defiant act of resilience, and it was every day since. Lucy was a survivor of the Shoah, though she was reluctant to accept that designation because she was never in a camp. Of that harrowing voyage, though she was almost too young to know what was happening. And of so many other trials and challenges in life, they are nearly impossible to count or to recount. But it is not only her survival that we remember today, it's what Lucy did with her survival, how she lived, whom she loved, and how she gave. Lucy had a vast and vibrant network of relationships, 87 years old, and this room is almost full. For someone who came from a family that was, in terms of numbers, quite small, no aunts or uncles with children, only 2 cousins, Lucy built a world overflowing with people. She welcomed strangers and made them friends. She stayed in touch, called, wrote, remembered. Her phone was always on. As I mentioned, if you called and she answered, she answered, and not just politely. She'd hang up on you to quickly take the call from somebody else. So quickly you didn't even know what happened. Call waiting, as I said, for her was no waiting. But it was that she cared about everyone. She couldn't choose the ringtone, made the decision for her. She cared about people arriving in a new country, just as her family had. She worked at Shalom, BC, at the Jewish Community Center, and volunteered for L'chaim, our adult daycare program. She cared about people navigating the healthcare system. She cared about injustice and inequality. She cared about waste, about the environment, about the news, about the planet, about what was happening in Israel and in the Jewish community and the wider world. And she read everything. The Globe and Mail, the Sun, the Jewish Western Bulletin, the New York Times. Her curiosity was relentless. Her activism quiet but committed. She was a Zionist and a humanist. We need more of them. A strong Jew and a deep pragmatist. Lucy's particular magic was her ability to hold contradictions. She held strong views but maintained friendships across every spectrum. Left, right, center. She could drive you crazy and love you fiercely in the same breath. And if someone drove her crazy, she'd still pick up the phone. She didn't drop friends. She lived in the tension and she stayed loyal. Her home was a hub. Her marriage to Gidon was for a time filled with shared purpose and community. Their house was constantly filled with guests. Only 32 days in 1 year during Expo 86, well, that was the count when somebody wasn't staying in their home. Only 32 days. I had to double check that with Ron because I didn't believe my note when you told me that. The kind of openness wasn't an accident, it was a worldview. Lucy was a nurse, and not just in title. She was a caregiver in spirit and in practice. She helped save lives, and yes, but more than that, she showed up for people in times of need, with knowledge, with empathy, with fierce attention. She could navigate the maze of the healthcare system long before anyone had ever heard of a patient advocate. How many of you had Lucy help you navigate the healthcare system? There's a few hands. She didn't need a title to be one. It was written on her soul. And she gave. She gave money and time and love, quietly, generously. She didn't need credit, she just needed to help. And Lucy kept everything in its place, not out of obsession, but out of respect. Respect for things, respect for food, for the earth. She would not eat because she didn't want to waste the food because she knew she wouldn't finish the meal. Wastefulness was intolerable to her, not out of cheapness, but because it felt like a kind of moral failing. She was, her children said, ahead of her time. And she was. Environmentalism, gender equality, non-binary thinking, quiet interfaith cooperation, civic engagement, pluralistic Judaism. Lucy didn't wear these as banners. They were simply how she moved through the world. And she moved. Lucy was a walker. Until the very end, she walked. With friends, with groups, through gardens, through neighborhoods, with her grandchildren, to the park and the playground. She had joy even at the end. She had the kind of joy that is made possible only through a deep, hard-won sense of what matters. And she adored her children. Danny and Ron, she was so proud of your commitments, your journeys, your partners, Monica and Tamar, and the lives that you built. She loved her grandchildren, Jacob, Ari, and Jonas, and Sasha, and Amira, deeply. And she took you all seriously. She taught through presence, through story, through example. She didn't just pass on values, she lived them. And she was deeply connected to her nephews, Devere, Sarah, Nimi, and Andrea, and Sivan. Her ties to Israel were not symbolic, they were lived. Her brother, Michael Livni, a blessed memory, who she so deeply admired, was a pioneering visionary of Reform Judaism. Michael dedicated his life to the Reform Zionist movement, and Lucy's life intersected with Israel not just as an idea, but as a place, a possibility, a responsibility. She worked with Jewish and Arab communities alike, and her vision for Israel, like her vision for the world, was one of equality and dignity and shared purpose. And she was, even though she didn't accept the term, a child survivor of the Shoah. And in her later years, the Shoah remained with her, pressed up against her sense of time and urgency, not out of fear, but out of obligation. She had to bear witness. She had to remind us. And yes, she was worried about anti-Semitism, about polarization, about what it means to be Jewish and ethical in a complicated world. But she also trusted her people, and she trusted all of us. In Pirkei Avot, it says, "It is not your duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." Lucy did not desist. She didn't fix everything. She left everything she touched a little more healed, a little more hopeful. Ora bat Peretz Va'oleg, child of Vienna, survivor of oceans and torpedoes, nurse, mother, friend, reader, activist, realist, idealist, connector, Zionist, humanist, walker, and witness. Her life was full and long. 87 years, given all she survived, is a miracle in and of itself. And it was a life that cannot be measured only in years. A life measured in presence, measured in values, in the people that she shaped and loved and who carried forward and who will carry forward what she built. May her memory be a blessing. May her legacy be our charge. And may her soul, woven into ours, help guide us as we try to make this world a little more just, a little more kind, a little more like she imagined it could be. Amen. So we want to invite Nimi to come up and to share some memories.
Dear Aunt Lucy, just checking the first page. May you rest in peace. The journey between the Western Galilee and Vancouver will forever remain part of our family story. We crossed the Atlantic and overcame even the Nazis' torpedoes, at least partially. This time, we flew through Paris, the city of love. Isn't that the most fitting stop on the way to say goodbye to Aunt Lucy? We've made this journey dozens of times. As children, we stayed here while my father, your brother, was on the Shlichut in New York. We helped Danny clear snow from Grandpa and Grandma's entrance. Before the army, I came for a visit and worked with Uncle Gidon. During my studies at UBC, I lived in your basement. I'm sure that I'm not the only one still remembers your phone number by heart, 604-261-5651. We kept coming with Jordi, Rafaeli, and Hadass. You came to all their bar mitzvahs in Israel. On your side of the ocean, the Douglas firs and cedars still grew strong, and Monica joined Danny with Jacob and Ari. Tamar, Jonas, Sasha, and Amira joined cousin Ron. You were part of our education too. We went to museums, plays, lectures, berry picking, the JCC, Abonim, Camp Miriam, Queenie, Temple Shalom, and much more. Also, many my kibbutz friends passed through your home, a final station of comfort before continuing their journey. Your house was an extended home for so many. And of course, before leaving the house, we always checked the coupon book. No Vancouver visit was complete without a stop at the suspension bridge in North Vancouver, not Capilano, but the Lynn Canyon one. At home, one of our greatest love was your family and friends. Hanukkah, Shabbat, dinners, chicken soup, and the plum cake from the Austrian cookbook, a recipe that the Nazis tried to steal as well, but they didn't manage. Everybody was a testament of survival. Your circle of friends could easily map the entire non-religious Jewish community of that time, including the Shlichim. Your love was vast, and so too as was pain of parting. Gloria, Eleanor, and Dina joined, and the loved ones who went before you. You always carried a quiet longing for those already gone and stayed connected very strongly with their children. When I wrote a paper on the Niskas Treaty at UBC, you clipped every relevant article from the Globe and Mail and Vancouver Sun. You even came with me to the Niskas conference. You were so attentive, one might have thought that you were part of the Nishka nation yourself. In your last week, with your remaining strength and lingering clarity, you remain the Lucy we all knew and love. You, a Viennese grace, surely learned from Sisi the Empress, the culture soul who bridged worlds. You gave me advice about whom to speak in regarding an article I'm writing, reminded us to take the key before going out. And of course, we forgot. And most important, not to leave the cherries in the fridge uneaten. Lucy, you taught us that the essence of life is genuine care for others and for the vulnerable, and to savor the short blueberry season. And if you buy blueberries, of course, thank you. Of course, buy them in a deal and BC grown. If we can continue your path, leaning on another and another in trust and in colorful, honest lives, while remembering, as in this week's Haftarah, to embrace Isaiah words of truth, but also of admonition when needed, then perhaps we can carry our spirit forward. May your memory be blessed, and as the Van Dusen garden blooms again, we are and always remain, you are always and will always remain a central pillar of our family. Love, on behalf of all the Langers family in Israel, Nimi.
My mom, always a social convener. This is a pretty impressive crowd. Pretty impressive final showing. In her last few days, she mentioned on several occasions how much she wanted to be at her funeral. All her people. She loved her people. My mom was the person you would sit around the kitchen table with, drinking a cup of coffee or tea, eating a slice of her plum, apple, or walnut cake. The door to the house was always open. Growing up, that's the picture I have of her, with so many of her friends or family back on Willow Street. For me, those were the golden years, where she was truly in fine form, and where so many strong connections were made with her friends and with her friends' kids, and many of those became my friends. She continued to build new and close friendships even after several of her closest friends passed away well before her. I'm so grateful for all of you who remained her friend through the last years as life got more difficult for her. Most of you know her history. As Rabbi mentioned, she was born in Vienna in 1938, and her parents were waiting for her to be born to attempt to escape, as her parents saw that the Vienna they loved, turned on them. Though she was only 4 when they eventually arrived in Canada, that period left deep scars on her. But I think she gained strength through her connection to Judaism and Israel, which were both central pillars for her. She ensured that these were passed on to me and Danny. She and her brother were both extremely involved in Habonim Dror and Camp Miriam. They were central for my mother and eventually for Danny and I as well, and now also for her grandchildren. Just like me and Danny, she met many of her oldest, closest friends, lifelong friends there. This is also where her progressive values grew, and she never stopped pushing for equality, environmental protection, social justice, just to name a few. As for Israel, her father was a strong Zionist. That is, of course, where they went basically first after fleeing Vienna, and where she met my dad. We flew there often with our parents to visit our amazing family. I love those trips, except for the one for my bar mitzvah. My bar mitzvah gift was supposed to be a trip to Egypt, but I got sick the day before the trip. So they did what every parent would do. They called their friend Moni to take my place and left me behind with my Aunt Amira and Uncle Gershon. I've still never been to Egypt. This was a great example of how pragmatic she was. She was proud of me and Danny, mostly about the people we grew up to be and the partners we chose. She loved to tell people that her boys chose wonderful spouses. They both had jobs with great benefits. Again, pragmatism. On a more serious note, the other day she insisted I make sure I told my dad how they did a wonderful job together, raising my brother and I. I'll take one of those. Then along came her 5 grandkids, who she was always so excited to be with, and until about a year ago, would still be able to get down on the floor and play with my little ones. My mom was the first to offer help, to listen, to guide people through their health issues, and she was exceptional at connecting people to her other people. She volunteered her time, shared what she had, and made so many feel welcome, including in her home. Cooking wasn't her specialty, but she had great Shabbat dinners and was known for her Hanukkah parties. All of these things were expressions of her love. Indeed, one of the hardest things for her in the last months was that she felt she was less able to help people and be there for them. She really struggled with that. So here we are. She died 2 days ago, on July 30th. Coincidentally, 83 years ago to the day, on July 30th, 1942, the Robert E. Lee, the boat she and her family were coming to America on, was torpedoed by a German submarine in the Gulf Coast. Mom, you took a day of fear and you turned it into a day of power. I love you.
Thank you, Cantor Moskowitz, for singing so beautifully. Cantor Gutman, and thank you,
Nobody's ever
Rabbi.
singing beautifully.
Yes, Rabbi Dan, for speaking so eloquently, and for Nimi and for my brother. I mean, you all wrote beautiful speeches that covered everything that my lousy speech that I tried to get together this morning covered, and much better. I know that all the people here and all the people who are in Israel and around Kamloops and around Canada that are watching this in Ontario, that you were special to her and that you were everything to her. Her friends were everything to her. She had family and she had community and she had friends, and all those things, they intermingled, and people who were in the community became friends, and people who were friends became family. That was my mom, and that's what she lived for. It's so nice to see you all. I hope to keep on seeing you. I'm sorry that Lucy is gone, but she had a very good life, and she went happy. She went with strength. Thank you.
It's okay that there's tears at a funeral. There should be. It just shows how much somebody means to us. It's the purest thing. We'll rise now for El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bameromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina V'mahalot Kedoshim Utahorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Ora Bat Peretz Veolga Sheholcha Leolamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchata Onom Harachamim Hastireha Beseter Kinofecha Leolamim Utzror Bitzaror Hachayim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalato V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomor Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Lucy, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And we say together, Amen. Friends, if we remain standing for just a moment, I'm going to ask the pallbearers to come forward now to stand by the side of the casket so that we can escort the body to the graveside. If Jacob and Ari and Andrea, Sivan, Mikey, and James can come stand three to a side. Please take with you, if you can, your programs, because we'll need them for Kaddish at the graveside. There will be a Shiva Minyan tomorrow night at 7:30 at Ron and Tamar's home, Sunday at 7:30, and Monday at 7:30 at Ron and Tamar's place. Please follow the family and then the casket, then the family. Thank you.